Welcome back to the LearnRHEL YouTube channel. This particular video is going to go into the playlist related to virtualization, and the whole idea is to teach people how to run Linux operating systems running based on the RHEL variants. But in this particular case, you might actually have an allocated the equipment at your home to do some virtualization, so you can learn how to do things, make mistakes, destroy them, recreate the machine, go back and do it again. Also, you can learn how to run Linux. Okay, so the idea is we're going to use Oracle VM VirtualBox Manager, which is the tool that is basically made available to you through this icon, which is easy to install. I have a video for that, and I've already loaded it. We're going to go ahead and start this program. Here we are. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create a brand new VM as opposed to import an existing VM. So in order to do that, we need to either use the blue button here with the new or go over to machine and click on new. Either way. Right. Here, when you fill in this field with a name, what you're really doing is saying, here's a physical chassis, and let's print a label with the host name and put that label on the chassis. Again, we're dealing with virtualization, but this is basically the equivalent to a physical label being put onto a physical chassis. But it is a software label being applied to a virtual machine. And that name will be listed here in these fields. Now, when you install Oracle VirtualBox, you actually will not have any VMs listed, right? So be aware of that. You should have these icons by default. There's different tool bars, tool options, so be aware of that. All right, so back to creating the VM. Again, we're trying to essentially set up this VM so that we have a virtualized chassis with so much storage, so much RAM, with so many CPU cores, so on and so forth. But we're also going to have to choose the operating system at the time we're doing this, okay? So we're going to choose this field, ISO image, drop down, and I'm going to choose the ARM Linux 8.9, x86-64, DVD. If you don't know why you should choose DVD, let me just say, this will give you the full suite of all the packages available from basically ARM Linux, which is a Red Hat variant, by the way, and it's for free. You can download it for free and use it for free so you can learn how to do stuff with Red Hat based on using the brand of ARM Linux. Okay, now we have to deliberately check this box, otherwise we have to use the stuff in this branch. And this stuff doesn't work. I have not got this to work yet, so I'm going to go ahead and skip past that, but make sure you do hit skip unattended installation. The other thing is that this is a Linux variant, so we need to make sure that this type indicates Linux, not Mac OS X, not IBM OS 2, not BSD, not Solaris, Linux. And then into there's another branch where you can choose Oracle Linux types, or Red Hat, or OpenSUSE, or SUSE Linux, or Tuber Linux, or Ubuntu, or Zubuntu, or Lubuntu, or Xandros. You get the idea, okay? I'm going to stick to Red Hat 64-bit, even though this says ARM Linux, because the two of them are really basically the same thing. All right, and then let's click on the hardware branch here. We are going to change the amount of physical RAM of my laptop's RAM and allocate a portion of it to this VM so that by the time we're done, when we boot this machine, it will have that much RAM being used by this virtual machine, and all the stuff going on in my actual physical desktop will be limited in performance based on how much of my RAM, my total machine, to how much of this virtual machine is taken up. 4 gig, not really that big a deal. And I have a lot of RAM on my laptop, so I'm happy about that. Right. We're not going to mess around with enabling EFI. You don't need to worry about that. I'm not going to worry about adding no more cores. One is just fine for virtualization, especially on my laptop. If you need to do this and increase basically the number of CPUs, which is really number of CPUs, number of cores, basically think of it that way. And we're going to move on to the next branch, which is the hard disks area. The name here, dummy VM, came from filling out this field right here. And same thing for this name here, but the idea is that it's actually got a VDI extension, Victor Delta India. Hopefully you can see that. I'm going to change the amount of my physical hard drive that's being allocated to the file set that's necessary to create this virtual machine and run this virtual machine. I'm going to change the quantity from 20 gigs to 80. And then what I'm going to do is change this, or so I'm going to show you that you can actually make it possible to export this VM or create this VM in different formats: VHD, VMDK, HDD. The VDI is Oracle VirtualBox. VHD is basically Microsoft's implementation of virtualization, which is Hyper-V. VMDK is VMware's implementation. Obviously, the most famous brand and product that's fee-based. Oracle VirtualBox is not. If you are trying to learn with it, you're clear to use it. It's free. You don't have to pay any licensing, no subscriptions, no registration, nothing like that. But with VMware, you do, and the salespeople used to hound me all the time. So I switched to Oracle VirtualBox just so I could have a tool that I could do virtualization with. All right. So I'm going to go back up here to VDI, select that, and now I'm going to work on clicking the Finish button. All right. And so basically, my virtual equivalent of my chassis has been created. Okay. So up here in general, I'm going to click on that blue link when I click on that. This is good. Advanced though, I want to change the shared clipboard to bidirectional and the drag and drop to bidirectional. Now, you may want to do this, you may not want to do this. I like doing this so that I can copy stuff from the screen back to my Windows machine. And I haven't actually ever tried doing Windows pasting it into this screen. So that's the drag and drop and the shared clipboard features. That's what those do. Okay. Now I click OK, and I can click on System, and it will show up the System tab here. Or I can be on General, like I just completed, and then simply click here in this pane on System. I'm okay with 4,096 megabytes being allocated. I don't need to change that. The boot order, booting up off a floppy, I don't really need a floppy, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that. You can leave it in place if you want, or you can remove it. Totally up to you. I think it's always best to have a media drive in the first portion of the boot order. Take higher priority than the hard drive. That way you can drop in a disk and boot up off that disk, whether it's physical or virtual. I'm talking generically speaking here now, not just VMware, not just Oracle VirtualBox either. And then after you install, you can change the order or leave it the same. If you don't have any media in the physical media drive or in your virtual case in your virtual optical drive, then it won't boot off that. So be aware of that. Okay, another thing to do is that when you're running with a Red Hat variant of Linux, you need to change this pointing devices field to the value of USB tablet. That one's critical. If you want to be able to use your mouse and use the entire real estate of the virtual machine that gets booted and installed, and then after it's installed, continue to use your mouse across the entire screen, left to right, up and down. That's the video realty, by the way. That's what I mean by that. Then you need to make sure that this is set to USB tablet. Very important. Okay, display. I'm only going to use one monitor. I don't need to allocate any more RAM for a video. I don't have any pressing requirements to have more power to my video card, virtually speaking. So I'm going to leave it at 16 megabytes. Now down here, graphics controller, I like actually changing this. Now notice this area is gray right now. There's nothing in here. But I want to change this to VBox SVGA. Not VBox VGA, not leaving it on VM SVGA, which is, by the way, the default for some reason, even though this is a VirtualBox product. I'm going to change it to VBox SVGA. Notice that the invalid settings detected came up. Be aware of that. It's not something you have to freak out about. But I wanted you to see that when you change it from one setting to this setting, so you can enable video with this particular analog of a video card, then you want to pay attention to the fact that this might pop up. Seeing it, you don't have to do anything about it. Just be aware. All right, storage. Now this is listed here because we loaded the virtual ISO. Okay, we can change it here before booting by going to this little icon, and then going and removing this disk or choosing a different disk file and so on, and going to the path where you have your own downloaded ISO library, your list of ISOs. I'm going to leave it on the 8.9 that I have. You can add other controllers. You can add another hard drive to this controller if you wanted to. I'm going to leave it with just a simple single hard drive, and The controller's called SATA. I'm going to leave it that way. No reason to try and dink around with it. There's no reason to change that. Okay, audio, I leave it alone. It's Linux, and I'm not really playing any audio from my Linux virtual machine back to my physical laptop out of my physical speaker. So let's go ahead and leave that alone. Network. This one's important. If you're going to connect your virtual machine with a network interface through your laptop or your desktop that has a physical NIC or a wired NIC or a wireless NIC, we also need to know how that connection is going to happen. We're not going to be doing a network address translation type of connection. What we're going to do is change the attached to field by clicking on the drop down and switch to a bridged adapter. Now, by doing that, that means that your laptop will be able to receive an IP address on the behalf of the virtual machine from your home router, whether cabled in physically or over a wireless connection. Right now, I'm using Wi-Fi because I'm on travel, but if I have my physical wired LAN connection turned on, I could choose between those two. Okay, I'm going to leave it on wireless and continue with that. Click the advanced button here, and you can choose the different types of driver and network card that you could use to optimize your performance in different ways. I like the one I got here by default. I don't really mess with it. I don't need to change it. This promiscuous mode setting, I'll be honest, I don't know what it does. I'm going to leave it on deny. I can change the MAC address, and I can change it all day. You see that number keeps changing. All right. So finally, I got cable connected, and that has to be checked. This is the equivalent to having a physical chassis, and if this is unchecked, then it means that you might have a cable plugged into the server, but the other end's not plugged into the switch, or vice versa. The other end is plugged into the switch, but it's not plugged into the server. You need that connection, whether you're doing wireless or not. You need this to say cable connected with the check mark in the box. Okay. Serial ports, I don't really mess with it. I don't have any reason to use DB9. I don't even have a DB9 connector on my physical laptop, so that's kind of a moot point for me. You can have multiple additional enabled serial ports if you want to do that. Have at it if you want to do that. Do some learning. Good for you. USB. This is for trying to connect other USB devices. I don't have a need for that, so I don't mess with it either. I could disable it or enable it. I'm going to leave it enabled even though I'm not really going to use it. Shared folders is another feature that is made available to you once you have your virtual machine built, and then you go through the trouble of installing the Oracle VirtualBox guest editions. Whatever you share here will then become made available through the virtual machine that has the VBox guest editions installed. It's almost like NFS, but it's not. Okay, so just be aware of that. You can add a path from your physical machine into here, give it a folder name to kind of give it association on the the virtual machine end, and you can tell that where to mount. And again, this is kind of like NFS, but not. Okay, read only so that you can't write changes to the folder on your laptop, and then auto mount so that every time you reboot your machine, it's simply there when you need it. All right, I will cover that topic with the VirtualBox guest editions later in another video, but it's not relevant right now. Finally, the user interface. I never mess with this. I don't know how many people really need to get into this and do anything, but I'm going to go ahead and click show at top of screen, and we're all set. Click the OK button. All right. Now you ready for the best part? We're going to boot up this machine using this ISO and basically get through the initial steps of installing the Linux operating system, which I've demonstrated how to do in my YouTube channel and the other playlist under the basic playlist, okay? So once I get to a point where the OS might actually start installing, I'm going to cut the video short. So let's go ahead and boot up this virtual machine. I can right click on here and do start, normal start, or I can just simply make sure that one's clicked and it's highlighted in blue, and I click on the start button up here. All right. Booting. VirtualBox is telling me that it's actually trying to power it up. Here we go. While this is going on, we want to do view scale mode and then resize this. Okay. Take your mouse cursor, click on it, and then use the arrow key, and then specifically choose the install Alma Linux 8.9, which should be highlighted predominantly in all white with a little bit of green. Hit the enter key to choose that option. I'm going to make this window a lot bigger so you can see it. I'm going to actually make it maximize to my screen of my laptop. This is normal Linux boot behavior when you load up an ISO and starting the installer. Hopefully we have no problems with this one. I have noticed, by the way, if you try and work with Alma Linux 9.3, and I've seen complaints from other people using other versions, Red Hat variants of 9.3 or 9.x actually, having a problem getting the GUI installer to get past this black screen we're looking at. The GUI installer will be presented here in a moment. When you see the mouse cursor, it's kind of a good thing. And here we go. This is the GUI installer specifically for the Alma Linux 8.9. All right. And basically, I'm going to go ahead and click on continue just to do a few clicks to get through the options you need to change. And here we go. I'm going to set the root password. I'm going to use whatever I want. You use whatever you want. All right. Click done. It gives you a challenge. Click done again. Now remember, I have videos on how to install a Red Hat Linux, so just be aware of that. The other reason why we chose that option, by the way, for USB tablet is to make sure that the mouse cursor can go to the upper left corner, the bottom left corner, the bottom right corner, and the upper right corner. Remember that reference to USB tablet? We got to make sure we do that so that the mouse cursor doesn't go ding, ding, ding right here. It gets stuck. So use USB tablet and you can reach all the way over here. Security policy. Maybe you want to go find something like the CIS Alma Linux benchmark, or perhaps an unclassified information system one, or maybe the HIPAA standard, or Australian cyber. Totally up to you what you want to use. I like using Disastig with GUI for Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8. Then you click the select profile. Again, this is in my videos for how to do this already. You want to make sure you click that, and then this says, hey, before you actually try and go and install your Linux operating system to completion, you got to make sure you have a home partition, a /tmp partition, a /var, /var log, /var log audit, /var temp, okay, and then a /boot separately. And then this also says it is definitely going to install these packages whether you want them or not. And then kdump is going to be disabled. Be aware of that. Kdump is disabled. I'm going to show you something. Based on this, kdump is disabled, and it's going to stay that way. Click on done here. And here's kdump. It's already been disabled. Because we chose that security policy here, it automatically disabled kdump here. Otherwise, one of the things it might do in the old days when you selected the policy, depending on the Red Hat operating system you were looking at, you would say, hey, silly, make sure you go and disable kdump yourself. Okay? We're not going to enable it. We're going to leave it disabled. Okay? Server with GUI, installation media, installation destination. Hey, there's our 80 gigabyte. Click on that. Now it's highlighted with a blue boundary. That means it's selected. We're going to click the done button. All right. What happened here? Here, oh, click on this, and now it came back properly. Now click the custom option if you want to do that. I do the custom option because I like to change partitions a little bit here and there. Click done. All right. I'm not going to worry about encrypt my data. This is when you do LUKS, L-U-K-S. But I am going to create some LVMs and start adding some partitions that were needed. All right, so the first one we got to do is boot. We want 2.0 gigabytes at most, GB. Sorry, G-I-B. Okay, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to add another one for /var. I'll go ahead and do 5 gigs, GIB. Again, this part that we're doing right now in this video, this is 100% covered in my Linux associated playlist, or basically on the basic playlist for showing you how to install Red Hat. So I'm going to quickly rip through this, and I'm going to assign some sizes. I'm not going to really talk too much about it. I'm just going to do it that way I can get the video moving forward. Swap usually is supposed to match the amount of RAM you have nowadays, but to be honest, the more modern operating systems like RHEL 7, RHEL 8, RHEL 9, they don't use swap as much anymore. Applications are written to run off of memory because now you can buy enough memory to run on your motherboard, to run your operating system, and run other applications. All right, var/temp. I'm going to give it 4.0 gigabytes. /var/log. I'm going to allocate 5 gigabytes. /var/log/audit. I like to give more than the amount that's given to var log. It's an actual separate partition, by the way. Okay. And I know we're missing something. I gotta figure out what it is. I think it's the /file system. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and allocate 20 gigabytes. And I think I'm missing something. So what I'm going to do, because I'm demonstrating this, is go ahead and click the Done button here. Go ahead and accept the changes. There's still a misconfiguration. Let's find out what happened. Maybe I missed the file, a file system partition, and I did. It was /temp. Let's go back to Done. Go back here to Installation Destination. Go ahead and click on the custom icon, which is done. The hard drive is already selected. Don't worry about it. Click Done again. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add the /tmp. There's a var temp, and then there's a temp in the Linux 8 variant. So let's go ahead and add /tmp. And I'm going to go ahead and allocate, let's say 5.0 gigabytes. And now we're down to 19 gigabytes here. So now what I'm going to do, just to be a little silly, is I'm going to go ahead and delete this guy. Then I'm going to add /back. Click that. Not specifying takes the default of everything else. All right. Accept partition changes again. There we go. Networking. This is important. We're going to, one, turn on the network interface, which is going to be passed through the physical machine to reach out to the Wi-Fi here where I'm working. In the hotel where I'm doing this. I'm going to change this. Now remember, the VM name here says dummy VM, but I'm going to change a different name here. I'm going to say 88 because I like to prefix my host names with basically an indication of which Linux variant I'm using. And I'm going to say LearnRHEL 2 just because I want to give it a different name. I'm going to go ahead and click Apply. All right. This is supposed to reflect the change, but I think my mouse might be having a problem. So hopefully we can get past this. There we go. Finally, this name changed to over here. Configure. Ethernet, that's the name of the network interface. I'm going to leave it at that. Automatic. IPv4. We're going to leave it at DHCP. But when I give out my name, I want to use the same host name. Okay. Require IPv4 addressing for this connection to complete. And I don't need to add any custom DNS search suffixes, nor do I need to add any custom DNS resolvers. All right. And because we're running DSP, I don't need to click the add button. We're okay here. IPv6, I'm going to turn it off. So I'm going to go ahead down to disabled. That used to be a major problem with installing Linux. For some reason, they couldn't figure out how to set a flag for turning that off. All right, save. Apply, that name matches there. Here, turn on the network interface. Okay. Now, for me, this might actually not work with the VM because I don't own the router. So it might be that I need to do some other changes. I'm not concerned about it right now. Click Done. And serve with GUI. That's good. Language good. Time zone's good. I'm going to create a user here. Let's do LearnRHEL user. Make this user administrator. I'll set the password. And then I'll set the password again to confirm it. Hopefully these match. Advanced, I'm going to specify the user ID and the group ID be 1000 right off the bat. Passwords do not match, so let's go ahead and delete these and make sure that they do. You see it down here. Okay, I don't need to do this again. Just want to show you though, it's still the same. Click done. Here we go. All right, network not connected because the Wi-Fi probably isn't playing nicely with my configuration. But I'm going to click on again, click done, and click begin installation. And as soon as we start to see packages being installed, which looks like we're getting ready to do here in a moment, this video will come to a complete end. It's creating the hard drive, it's creating the partitions. In reality, it's creating them into a set of files that represent the hard drive. And all this stuff is going to be stored in that VDI file because we only have one VDI, one hard drive for this virtual machine. Okay? Downloading packages from the internet, which probably will work because it's going through my laptop to do that, and then it will try to install them. But the actual networking portion is probably going to fail in reality. But preparing transaction from installation source. Hopefully we can make this work. So this is it. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here. This is all you need to do because the rest of this will be fully automatic all the way from here to the completion. And again, go back and look at my other YouTube videos on how to install the Linux RHEL Linux variants, and you'll have a great deal more success even within this phase of your learning path. Thank you, and have a good evening. Bye-bye.